Today's presentation, happy 4th of July, by the way, to all of you, before I forget that. Today's presentation is inspired by a thing a couple weeks ago I saw where some high bank executive in international finance was having an absolute breakdown about COBOL and how the world banking system was going to collapse because of COBOL programming. And I don't know why that came across my news feed, but it did. You got to be, this guy is some super high European banking official. He should understand enough about this to know that that's just not true. But, and I looked into it a little bit and there are problems here. Most of the problem is modern computers. It's not COBOL. COBOL was designed back in the days when you had a single CPU.
Back in the days, what?
When your computer had a single CPU.
Okay.
Modern computers have, especially high-speed ones, have lots of CPUs. And the hardware sometimes allocates things between CPUs or the software. And you can end up with non-uniform arithmetic operations. Part of the operation is done in that CPU over there, and part of it is done over here, and then you have to put them together. And the hardware is actually very good at doing this. But COBOL assumes that there was only ever one, and it doesn't have to wait for that merger. And this can cause problems. And there are solutions to this that involve delaying arithmetic results so that things get properly merged. It's a solvable but expensive, very expensive problem that slows down the processing. This is a bad thing. And so we're going to throw money at this, but we need more COBOL programmers, and the COBOL programmers are all dying. Help! And like I said, we were here 26 years ago with the year 2000 problem. We needed programmers in an ancient language. We found them. This time, a lot of them are gone. How do we rescue the world when the computers can't communicate with the programmers and the programmers can't communicate with the managers, and the old systems are dying and the new ones don't know the old languages? And I said, there's a kernel for a science fiction novel there, but I'm not going to write it. Anyway, the first couple of videos explain kind of this problem. It's a real problem. And I think there will be a solution. There are several possible solutions, and eventually the banking industry will settle on one. But at the moment, it's just a problem they can talk about, so they're not really trying to fix it. And we can survive with that, I suppose, for quite a while. So in some ways, it's It's going to be a crisis, and it is a time bomb.
Sort of.
Yeah,
Like Y2K was or wasn't,
it's
but different.
Y2K was actually more of a real problem, I think. And Y239 is going to be another real problem.
I had a quick, and Tom's got his hand. I had a quick comment before we start the $1 trillion code crisis. Yeah,
Okay.
there's some commercial for a drug company or something. No, it's for an AI company, of course. And there's an assembly line, and the robot starts destroying the cars and all that, and they're up
Mhm.
on a catwalk. What do we do? Well, we get someone that knows COBOL, and the guy looks at her and says, "What's COBOL?" And then
Ah,
AI to the rescue, and blah 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 blah. So anyway,
yeah.
Should I start this
Anyway,
time?
yeah.
I was wondering if it's possible to modify a COBOL compiler to handle the multiple CPU problem.
Yes.
Or the other solution
This is,
would be to rewrite everything in a more modern language.
yeah. That's expensive.
yeah, or run
Solutions.
COBOL simulations,
It's a matter of,
simulators,
Solutions.
it's a matter of the
Shoot.
component, basically.
right?
It's a money problem.
Did you know that
It's a time problem. And it's a not my problem.
Yeah, yeah,
And
good point.
Here you go.
I'm sure we'll figure it out.
wealth is
But-
managed by computer code that most developers today have, well, they've never even
Yeah, I, I might have a comment. Yeah, and I'd forgotten. I learned COBOL way back in the day. And it was
Mhm.
legacy. It was a legacy thing then, and the teacher said, "Well, I got to pass this on to somebody because it's out there and it ain't going away." And I'd forgot about the speed. It's not that hard to write line by line, and
Nope.
once you learn the syntax, and it is very efficient in a really, really, really slow single core CPU. Yeah.
Mhm.
The video seemed a little bit like your classic um, advertisement for
IBM.
AI assisted style workflow where it's like, oh, AI is here at the beck and call to be able to put together all the things that you need to do. And it seems a little kind of uh, optimistic.
Oh yeah, it's very optimistic.
Sort of
Part of the
like the end of Snow White, where they get married and go off into the horizon.
yeah.
But what are the alternatives? You see, eating the poison apple, or um, like like
The
like she pointed
yeah.
out, we do nothing, cross our fingers, hear no evil, see no evil, think no evil, and hope that it
We
doesn't bite us.
we know it's going to crash. What we have to do is
And why? I didn't want an explanation of why it hasn't crashed in 80 years and suddenly it's going to, because of just the volume and why is suddenly this a problem, or it's always been a problem?
it's always been a problem. It's just that it was a problem that could be ignored.
Like, yeah,
And we
like
ignore And we ignored it and ignored it and ignored it and
Yep.
ignored it. And now
Well,
you have dentures.
like my tree on my rental property. I can ignore it as it threatens to kill me in my bedroom in a storm.
Mhm.
And so far, so good, right? But
Yep.
at some point this year or next year, we're going to have somebody come in and spend big bucks and trim that tree. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you know, I'm surprised the insurance company AAA hasn't been out here. Hey, you got to do something about that tree. Depending on which way it went down, it could kill 4 people or 1 person or.
I'm not that interested in that. Let's go on.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm
The
just saying
COBOL time
problems
bomb.
ignored. Yeah.
The next video is more a description of what the actual problem is. And there not being a solution. At least not a neat one.
So the problem is not lack of COBOL programmers.
Um, there are 3 problems. One is that the old COBOL programmers who understand the old code are going away. One is that the language itself, way down in the marrow of its bones, makes a presumption that is not true anymore. That when you have a single CPU, you have predictable inputs and outputs. Modern computers have multiple CPUs. And the CPUs themselves are not always unified creatures, but multiple partial CPUs that get together and make a result. That's all right. You can program around that. The problem is that COBOL doesn't do that. COBOL is based on the premise that there is a single result. And the idea of there being 2 half results that get put together can screw up the COBOL system's timing. And as long as the hardware does it all perfectly, it works. But if you interrupt the hardware, sometimes the things don't get put together in sync. They do get put together and put together correctly, but one part is a little ahead of a different part, and then the decision is made because the COBOL program looked at the front half and thought it had the back half, and then it goes off in that direction, when if it had the whole thing, it would go off in this direction. And it's a horrible, messy problem that I don't think is very It's a very tiny problem that can have gigantic consequences. And there doesn't seem to be much being written about it, which is part of what scares me. When people are not paying attention to it. Carol.
Well, what's the third problem?
Oh, the third problem is a human problem. This is not a problem. Pretending there's no problem.
Yeah, that's my tree analogy. Yeah.
Okay, so you're essentially talking about a race condition.
Yeah.
Where,
The CPU is no longer a monolithic thing.
yes,
It's several things that have to get their pieces put back together.
Multi-threading on different looms. Kind of, sort of. I don't know the current technology.
It's kind of, it is a form of multi-threading, but it's supposed to be an invisible multi-threading, and it turns out that sometimes they're little burbles.
Yep. Tom Walsh hates my real world analogies, but when I'm watching live sports, right, especially golf for some reason, that they'll in the old days, the sound and the lips moved at the same time, and now they'll be out there on this golf course and they'll be taking wonderful 4K video with their drones and all that, and they'll have mics. And then the guy will be addressing the ball, right? And then he'll go like this, and you hear whoosh. I mean, 2 or 3 seconds before you see the ball take off, and it's a little disconcerting to us that grew up with sound synced with video. But anyway, yeah.
Tom,
So
is this parallel? Is this a parallel versus serial processor issue?
no,
It's that distinction is now, it used to be your processor was one or the other. Now it's both.
Yeah.
And
They used to talk about von Neumann's and non-vons, and I don't know if that applies to the situation that you're describing now or not.
kind of. Part of the problem is that von Neumann is old. We've moved past that.
von Neumann is dead.
That's true.
No, I'm
That's
talking
true
about
too.
the expression or the adjective of a computer processor being a von Neumann serial processor versus a non-von Neumann parallel processor.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think
okay.
the Cray 5 was one of the early
Yeah.
non-parallel processors. There used to be one
Yeah.
at the Supercomputer Research Center. I used to hear the fellows talk
Yep.
about that a lot.
Yeah. It's
Difficult to write code for.
yeah. It's that problem written very small. Within the chip itself, you have multiple engines running, and they can sometimes not get out of sync, but not you have like imagine a train track. and with a bunch of places to put cars. And you have 4 factories, each of which is filling a boxcar. And each factory pushes its boxcar onto the track into the right place, and then the train moves along. And if one of the factories is late, that interferes with getting the train assembled. And then the train down here that this piece of train is being assembled into gets delayed. And yeah, it's a mess. And this, of course, can't happen, except that it does, because there's a the voltage in this corner of the chip drops a little bit because of excessive numbers of ones in an accumulator or something, and that slows the reaction time a little tiny bit, but that little tiny bit is suddenly significant. And when your process when your process is floating point, it's not so much a problem, because most scientific calculations don't much care about the last 3 bits of the answer out of 48 or whatever big word you're using. But that's 8 cents in a business process. And that's not allowed. Yes, Dean.
Yeah, you alluded to it. You talked about processes going on the same little chip that we can barely see, and it's where the numbers meet the physical world. There are, I don't care how many low voltage it is, there is heat involved in processing, and
Mhm.
and there's manufacturing, fabrication tolerances and all that. So yeah, I can see one piece of the chip getting slightly warmer, slightly slower than another piece of the chip, and then what a great analogy. All the boxcars don't get lined up correctly, and the train is out of
Yep.
order. Now we're screwed. Yep.
Yeah, it's how can I say this? I can understand it, but it's very difficult to explain. The we we've spent, I would guess 90%, it's a wild guess, of CPU research is spent on floating point. Rather than integer. But money is pretty much integer. Either you have a penny or you don't. Do you have a dime? You have 2 dimes. You don't have fractional dimes. And so the great concentration on going fast with floating point does not have a corresponding speed increase in fixed point arithmetic. Part of this, COBOL is the basic premise. One of the basic premises, unspoken premises, is that arithmetic is integer. And scientific computing is at the basis is that it's a fraction. And sometimes good tricks for one are bad tricks for the other. But so much money has been poured into fractional arithmetic. Floating point arithmetic is its fancier name. That people expect the two systems. The same machine can usually be made to do both and do both well. But the business people, how can I say this? Business people, it seems, by high-speed floating point when what they want is high-speed integer. And so they end up with disappointing results. Tom?
Well, yeah, basically, processor speed has been measured in terms of flops for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So integer has not been a big consideration for a long time.
Yeah, but that's where finance runs. You don't have fractional dollars. We have whole pennies. Gene.
But in reality, you don't. I mean, there's the whole penny rounding problem and all that, which is now a nickel dime rounding problem because pennies are going away. And that famous case about the guy that made $3 million, a programmer, by just ignoring the round up, round down, taking all
Saving a half cents. Yep.
and nobody noticed that their statement was off by a half a cent. You know, and it also reminds
It wasn't. Their statement wasn't off.
right. Their statement looked correct to them.
It was.
It was correct, yeah. But it also reminds me of slide rules. When you talk about floating point, slide rules were great, right? They could do a form of floating point precision, but they couldn't add. And then when HB 35 came out, I said, "Oh my God, this thing can." Well, we had other calculators that could add, but yeah, money is of course it's integer with two decimal places or whatever. But it you still when you put an 8.5% sales tax on something, there are fractional pennies and dollars and all that.
Fractional pennies. Yep.
Fractional pennies.
And if you round, depending on how you round it, I mean,
Yeah, you don't want to just truncate.
yeah.
Yeah, truncating is where somebody's making money.
Yeah, truncating is where you. Well, actually, that's not how the scheme worked. The scheme actually kept track of the quarter cents and added them up. It found 4 pieces of quarter cent, whatever, and instead of just throwing it away, it put it in a pot.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand why he was convicted, I guess. But what I want to know is who was damaged? I mean, the quarter cents It would have just sat there in the bottom of the bucket and evaporated. He didn't take anything from anybody. So convicting him of theft struck me as being we're going to convict you of theft because we don't know what to call this. And you shouldn't have done that. But he didn't steal anything. He just picked up things that were being thrown away. Dean.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I bored Stan with this, but it was real to me. Jack in the Box. I don't think you have them back there.
I've seen them
drive-through restaurant.
traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at any rate, so I was up in Mira Mesa there, and I'm going to get some splurge on some fast food, and it came to $1 back in those days, right? In other words, I'm adding up because I'm probably looking in my coin purse or whatever, and it was $1. And our tax then was a simple 6%. So if the total of two items, let's just say they're 40 cents and 60 cents, then I had, by the time I got to the drive-through, had $1 bill, 1 nickel, and 1 penny. And the guy says, your total's $1.07. And I said, no, it's not. Well, that's what the computer says. I says, well, your computer is wrong. And I shut down on probably a weekend night. I shut down down, and I said, well, Mike, call the police because my car is not moving until you give me my food or a penny. I was going to play hard nose with them, and luckily there was a night manager there who knew the system. He said, well, here is the way we do our taxes. The computer individually taxes each item, bills that into the price, and it rounds up a penny, and then it also rounds down a penny. And he said, if you order the right combination, you'll save a penny. So in the end, we are not ripping you off for a penny.
Yes, you are.
And neither is the state of California. It's all coming out in the wash. So there was rounding.
No doubt.
Well,
Yeah.
they claim I was, the manager was a really smart guy and all that, and I bought it, but and I go, well, why don't you just add the tax on at the end? Well, that's not the way our computers are programmed. And the state of California approved it, and they claim that nobody was making extra money on it, but I can't verify that. Because if you price the product such that you will always get that extra penny, somebody's getting that extra penny. And he said, well, we don't get it. Talk to Governor Newsom or whoever it was back then. I said, all right. Yeah. I got bigger tax problems in California than a penny on a bonus check.
Yeah, it's
Where's David? It's complicated.
I got the video ready, Tom.
COBOL time bomb.
Oh boy.
This is an attempt to explain what the time bomb, so to speak, is.
Do you have close?
And that's the problem.
Sounds serious.
It's I have not taken all of my money out of the bank and put it in gold coins to carry around. But I did think about that.
Me too. And what scares me is the hockey stick curve of this. And the human inclination, if
Tomorrow.
you can use an axe to build a boat, you can also use an axe to chop up your parents. Although Lizzie Borden, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a human inclination to get rich now. And yeah, this joke, I remember hearing about this mythos, and oh yeah, it's all in house. And oh, by the way, we shared it with 63 trusted partners who have trusted partners who have trusted partners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is where security stuff comes in. But I love the idea of just guess the URL, and then there's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, hacking
Okay.
anyway.
That is not the first time that has been done. People have guessed URLs for a dozen other vastly removed things.
Yep.
Because well, what did he call it? Maybe that's the name he used. Typey. Ah,
I did that when I was with the post office where I didn't have access to something. I go, yeah, but I know the pattern. I've seen it. I'll bet I can get into
yep,
the database that you don't want me to get in. And then
yep,
I might get a call from Raleigh saying, or my manager would, what's this E.T. Petty doing in our systems? Well, you gave me a computer, and
you
I'm
told me to fix
and
this, and so
I
I'm
did it
fixing it.
not for nefarious reasons. I did it for my own edification,
Yeah,
to make the plant run. But
yeah.
anyway, Tom.
Yeah,
Mr. Walls.
I talked about Claude Mythos and Project Glasswing in my presentation in May.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware at that time that someone had stolen it the first day it was out. But the reason Project Glasswing was created was basically to keep it out of the hands of the Chinese. But obviously
that
that
didn't work.
right. Yeah. So yeah, that's um, every system on Earth is under threat because some bad actor could use it to do nefarious things. Uh, and that's the way it is these days. That's not going to change.
Yeah, yeah. This is not a happy presentation. I I have not seen anything that looks like um escape or cure, or the prevention is paying attention, and paying attention is hard, and paying attention continuously is even harder, and the computer doesn't sleep.
Yeah,
Dean.
or you put your money under the mattress and then find a store that still takes cash and do it that way. I know, and you can't function not having your business online, and yet it is extremely risky these days. And of course, the more you have to steal, the more likely you are to get stolen from. And I've been ripped off for only a few $1,000s on the internet, going back decades. But yeah, I mean, there's somebody somewhere. It used to be Ukraine. Now they're busy trying to kill Putin. But they were the masters at it. Most of the great financial hackers were in the Ukraine because they're smart people, apparently.
I saw an interesting program last night. It was a Christiana Amanpour lecture or interview with someone who had specialties with quantum computing. And this is slightly off the topic, but that had a effect on The interviewer was talking to a woman who was involved with quantum computing and the effects on code breaking. And she also mentioned that there's another feature that quantum computers are being capable of doing, which I hadn't heard of, was they're being able to do accurate GPS style location without any kind of external referencing. It's kind of it's another attribute or another quality that quantum computing can do, which can give ships and aircraft a quality of not interrupted GPS quality location or navigation. So there's two sides to that coin now. There's the navigation side and the encryption side that are being raced against just in that arena of quantum computing. That, along with this mythos and other things, is another kind of a three-legged stool headache.
Yeah, that was
Um,
uplifting.
It's.
Should I take
I
all
wish.
my
I
money
wish.
and put it in
I
Apple
wish.
Pay? I don't know.
I wish there was good news here. I really do. I look for it. It's the
Beyond scary.
yeah, and
There's a lot of technical jargon going on there. And
Yeah, this is written for cybersecurity engineers, but
I'm not sure exactly how, as a personal user of a bank or a credit union, we can do then other than to maybe indicate to your financial consultant that you've seen and been looking at these online videos about mythos and bank security and just wonder if they're doing anything about it.
yeah, and what if you are your own financial analyst, which I am, and I've always
yeah.
that's the problem. Yeah.
eh, the only thing I can think of to say is to use good passwords and be careful when using them. That's
One of the things that they mentioned about, I forget the term they used, but I've been in certain manufacturing situations in production, and you do something and you make something. And then you also have to also make a note of what you did in a documentation chain. And the emphasis from the management was that documentation chain is as important, if not more important, than the actual product itself. Another analogy I can remember is a colleague of mine that was in the submarine corps during his experience in the Navy was talking about parts coming from a manufacturer to a submarine where there had to be a constant gaze on that product from point A to point B because of what was there a certain sub that what was the name of that sub that had the fatal error? Not the Tritia. There was a sub that there was a part that went bad in a particular sub, which caused
It had a fish name. I forget what it was. It was some kind of sound like a tuna fish or something.
But the bottom line is that there was this, I don't know what the term they use, but there was a constant observation that had to be seen in someone's observation from the point of the manufacturer to the delivery to the sub.
Yeah. It's a problem. The we can, what time is it? Oh, good Lord. Okay, we should probably slide down to the infrastructure trap. Why COBOL is immortal. The other two videos, the two videos I'm passing over are more history than how we got here. And the Mr.
Tell me-
Wallace.
Back when I was coding, a lot of it was in COBOL because a lot of my clients were banks and brokerages. And
Mm-hmm.
basically what the COBOL was used for was the back office processes. Those are the ones that move the money around behind the
Mm-hmm.
and so that's where all the money basically is kept. So that's the fact that those systems are more vulnerable now is a big threat. Because
Yeah, the only solution I can really imagine is to take and write a whole new system, new language, and install it overnight over the whole world.
Or
And you
incrementally,
can't,
the strangulation kudzu model.
yeah, but the problem with that is malignant kudzu, I suppose might be a way to put it.
Yep.
And so then that doesn't work either.
And the other
Eh,
takeaway from both those videos was the in-house-ness. You know what I mean? If you can keep it in-house and not do glassworks or glassware or whatever it is, and
yeah.
and contractors, subcontractors can get access that they need, that maybe the people even in the company don't have, because the company is doing their internal trying to compartmentalize this information, need to know. And yet the contractors, that was in the post office. I'd get frustrated. I couldn't get into some postal system. And the contractor said, "You don't know the password for that?" I go, "No, post office won't give that to us. We're only the prime contractor on this job." "Oh, well, I have it." "Well, good for you." Yeah. "Would you give it to me?" Because I knew these people by then, they were friends. And they go,
But
yeah, but don't tell anybody where you got it."
yeah. Yeah. That's the great security problem.
Okay, here we go.
Tell and don't ask.
New modern stacks, but there's a quieter layer.
Good videos.
Like them. It's the last two here are well, we don't really have time for those. We could back up one, I suppose, that we missed. Um, but the COBOL past, present, and future would take us to about 1215, and it's very good. The 60-year-old code was interesting, I suppose. I don't think I have 20 minutes of stories about Grace Hopper to tell. Although I should probably start by saying there's some dispute about how much praise and how much blame she gets about the start of COBOL. She was there, and she was proud of what they did, and I think she was right. They did solve some very real problems at the time, and saying that they didn't see 50 years ahead is accurate, but most people can't. Actually, no one can. David.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. Okay. So potentially we've got this time bomb that will allow people to hijack legacy systems.
Yep.
And the likelihood that there are people who are motivated to want to hijack these legacy systems.
That's a certainty.
The banks
it?
are going to take out insurance policies that supposedly will hold them, will allow them to fix the problem after it's been broken.
Yeah.
All of their customers are at risk.
Yep.
And that is in the EULA that you sign when we're not going to hold you blah 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 responsible for your F up.
In theory.
In theory.
Yep.
So the question is, in this race between security and dysfunction, it looks like the likelihood of continuing business as usual is not very high. Is that basically am I understanding where you're coming from on this? It's a serious problem. It's going to cost somebody a lot of money, one way or another.
It is an exceedingly serious problem. The world I don't even think I understand how serious it is. The world. Oh, good. I have a coin. This is money. Most of my money is not in coins. It's in paper accounts.
Right.
And there are a lot of ways that those accounts can be attacked.
Yep.
And there is not really much of anything I can do about it. Now, I have people who help manage my money, and they are to a certain extent aware of my thinking about these problems. And they pretty much say, yeah, that's a problem. And one of them even has people trying to find solutions, but there was a time when money was metal. You had a pile of gold, you had a pile of silver, maybe some gems. And there were problems with that. So we invented the idea of putting the heavy metal in the cage and using paper money to pretend to move pieces of it around in the bank, keeping
You
it
shall
all
not
safe.
crucify mankind on a cross of
On a
gold.
cross of gold. Yeah. Most money
Who said
now,
that?
William Jennings Bryan.
Very good.
Most money now is paper. It's not even paper.
No.
It's entries in accounts.
Digits.
Numbers in a computer.
It's just numbers. That's
Yeah.
all.
It's just numbers. And I can see how, don't kidnap me, I don't know exactly enough to do it, but I can fear that people could steal it all from the government, from the banks, from whatever, and hold it hostage. Just to set all of our accounts down to zero and watch us run screaming into the grocery store. And 2 weeks later, there won't be anything in the grocery store but mousetraps. And society collapses. And it wouldn't be it would be perhaps first our society. Canada and Mexico would follow very rapidly. Europe might hold out a day or two after that. And what do we do about it? I mean, I just don't know. It's easy to say we should not have come down this road. But we have. And how do we escape? We can't undo the past. We did it. We didn't mean to. We didn't mean to have this consequence. But here it is.
Right.
And it's a horrible problem. I think part of the reason I kept working on this is I kept hoping I'd find some good news, but I don't really see any.
Okay, so if there isn't any really good solution to this,
There's not even a bad solution. We're going to just have to keep muddling along, and eventually we're going to stumble and fall. And what happens then, I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing any fiction about this. What was it? There was a science fiction novel about the collapse or the destruction of the stock market. But back in the early 60s. But that was just the stock market. This is much, much bigger than a collapse of Wall Street. This is literally the collapse of money.
Yeah, sort of.
And we can keep this is the clown. We can keep juggling this ball, and we don't have any choice. And
okay, so can we make a comparison between what might happen if Russia and China and North Korea and Iran stop using dollars for money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If we separate into, probably we ought to say, 3 groups, we might be able to handle 3 groups. The United States is sort of all on its own here at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Europe is clearly a group. Potentially Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea are potentially another group. And then there's everybody else. So 4 groups. Because I don't know how to handle what used to be the Western groupings. Anyway, when one of these groups starts stealing money from another group, that group is going to try and put up fences and prevent their money being stolen.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably they're going to slow down the transfers between their system and any other system.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, if you steal access to the computer, you transfer money out of one account into somebody else's account, and then you try and walk off with you want to use the money in that somebody else's account to buy something and send it physically from one system to another system.
Well, you don't have to do that. You have to move you just have to move the bookkeeping funds.
Yeah. And you have to muddy the waters so that nobody can figure out what you did.
Yep. Well, no. You have to muddy it enough that they can't see that you did it.
Yeah.
They'll know that somebody took it.
But the fix, if I'm not way out of line, is to halt the use of the whole system till you can figure out what changes were made.
Mm-hmm. But you can't do that.
Okay.
It's
paying your bills, yeah.
Well, so what has to happen at each of these legacy systems is you have to have another system that's tracking all of the
Yep.
changes. And
Mhm.
that's in the middle layer, is it not? You've got
Well,
your fancy.
most I would think most of these are going to already have that tracking feature as part of the middle layer. You almost need an independent middle layer watching the middle layer.
Exactly. Yes, you need to have a parallel system to the COBOL system that's tracking all of the communications between the middle layer and the COBOL system that's actually holding your money.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have a security system that shuts down the communication from COBOL when it identifies that somebody has fraudulently caused problems with the COBOL operation.
Yep.
But
But now
if
you have
the-
another problem. You have to monitor your monitoring program. The cop who's a thief is a problem.
Was there anything about the blockchain that was designed to kind of be a assistant in this issue?
blockchain is extremely post-COBOL.
Yeah, blockchain, you're talking about Donald Trump $1 billion last year. Yeah. You're talking about currency.
Blockchain, as I understand it, is immune to some of this, but it is exceedingly computationally heavy,
Yeah.
orders of magnitude more than the legacy systems.
Now, I had another question before I got my
Okay.
hand disappeared.
Okay.
I saw something about the Pentagon, 1959, Grace Hopper.
Yeah.
Another character in my mind who seems to be very powerful in the government right now is Larry Ellison and Oracle and his relationship
Yeah.
to the Pentagon and CIA. Now, was there anything about is Oracle and COBOL both languages, or is it one a company and the other one is a language?
No, Oracle is a database.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with, well, yeah, COBOL is a language, computing language.
Yeah.
Oracle is a DB.
Yeah.
Among many other products, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Carol, you've popped to the head of the line here.
Well, I was going to say there is one current hard science fiction book that has gone one step further than this and postulated Earth being hit by a Carrington event. And that is something that would blow all of the electronic and electrical systems out of the water.
Yep.
And we would, I did a presentation on this a couple of years ago, but essentially we'd be back to 1800 as far as technology is concerned, instantly.
And that is a when question as more than it is an if question. But
Yep.
when could be when Yellowstone wipes out the world, and explodes. But it will.
Well, the last time it happened was in 1850 something.
Yellowstone. Oh, Yellowstone was not a cauldron in 18.
No,
No,
the
no,
Carrington
The
event.
Carrington event.
Oh yeah, yeah, and we are infinitely more vulnerable to that
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Definitely.
And when that happens, figuring out what the who owns what in terms of financial paper is going to be really messy. And figuring out how the government's going to collect taxes and pay services is going to be really messy. And a bunch of people will probably starve before we get that worked out.
Well, and kill each other.
Yeah.
Riots and
There's some.
Mad Max.
There's a David Forrester. What's the name of that? Has a trilogy about a electronic thing that wipes out computers and stuff, and we're slammed back into the 1500s. Let me Google. Give me a thing here.
Well, I stepped into the conversation late, but did you just guys discuss the possibility of AI doing this? Pick up COBOL for the lack of COBOL programmers?
Oh yeah, we covered that. He covered that.
Okay, I figured you would have. Thank you.
Okay.
But we don't have to invent solar doomsday events, because kind of sounds like we're headed towards one, just out of the old momentum of the system and the code. We don't need any external bad thing.
1 Second After by William R. Force, just Forstchen.
Can you
I'm gonna copy chat.
okay.
Come on. There's the first of a couple. Yeah. We don't need a Carrington event. We can do our own. It's 12. Thank you for your kind words, all. Grace Hopper. I actually met Grace Hopper.
Wow.
She was, I think it was 1966, but I'm not sure. I forget the name of the conference, but she came to Michigan State University, where I was a student, and I was assigned with 3 other students to assist her in making nanoseconds. And she introduced herself. We went over to this Sigma Labs, where we had a very long, straight corridor. and she had 3 big spools of cable, and we unrolled them down the length of this corridor and turned and came back the rest of the way. And then these 4 big strapping guys, first we cut them in half, so we had these 8 pieces, and then we took them, we stood on the ends, and we stretched them so they would be straight. And then she had an 8-foot board and a couple of pairs of wire cut dikes, cable cutters, and we went down cutting these things into 8-foot long pieces. And somebody asked her why 8 foot, and she said, because an 8-foot board fits in a car. She'd stopped in at the local lumber. I bought an 8-foot board. And then we adjourned to a classroom where we had to figure out how long a nanosecond was given the physical characteristics of the cable. And it was 11.82 inches, I think. And we set up some little jigs, and we set them up, and then we just snip, 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 buckets and buckets of these things, and carried them over to the Fairchild Theater where she was giving this presentation, and we handed them out as people came in. And at one point I had a half a dozen of them, but they're now gone. So that was nanoseconds. The more interesting part to me was that someone had asked if I could take her to the airport. I said, sure. And I go to the hotel, pick her up, put her stuff in the trunk, and head off. And she says, Tom, is your mother Helen Woodbury? uh, yes. She says, you look like your mother. And it turns out that my mother in World War II was in the Navy and served in Texas, and Admiral Hopper was in the Navy and served in Texas, Navy in Texas, and she knew my mom. And so we talked a couple minutes about that, and then we were at the airport, and off she went.
Wow.
Weird is what it was. It's still weird. Someone important walks up. She's, do I know your mother? What?
How did she know your mother's maiden name?
Well, that's what she. Well, she'd been introduced to me as Tom Trites,
Okay.
but she recognized. She says, "You look like your mother." So she asked who if she knew my mother as Helen Woodbury, not Helen Trites.
Right.
So she was strictly going from the genetics.
She apparently knew that I was there.
The phenotype.
Yeah, and that.
Your mother had a beard?
But I never. I was just shocked by it, and then it went by, and I never asked Mom about her, never told her about it.
Really? Why?
Because I just, it was just, Well, because it was a time in my life when I had very little contact with my parents, and it just never came up.
Yeah.
Last question,
Yes.
since I missed the last few minutes. Was there a conclusion to the presentation, or is it just that we're all screwed, or what?
The conclusion is pretty much that, at least at the moment, we're screwed. We're
Yeah,
in free fall.
the conclusion was
I
wait
don't
for a
see.
Carrington event or Yellowstone to.
I
Because
Yeah.
there's no quick fix to this.
there is no quick fix,
There's no slow fix.
and I don't even know that there's any fix.
Right.
And
Well, there was one proposed in the third video, I think.
well, yeah, there have been lots of proposals, but it's
Yeah, the gradually,
eh,
seamlessly porting it over.
Parallel,
yeah,
parallel
parallel.
system.
but
Yep.
the gradual thing. But if you, I think there are probably problems with that too,
Yeah.
because in the process of doing that movement, it's going to be very possible for someone to inject a new version of this trap.
A back door.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were talking
The
about,
problem might be there may be 5 or 6 back doors.
but they were talking about totally in-house. Well, you got to be big enough to do
Yeah.
it in-house with
Yeah.
people with M16s guarding your data. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
But the thing is, the people with
Can't be on the
people with,
internet. Nothing valuable can be on the internet, really. These
yeah, and it is a horrible problem, and I wish I could say, oh, well, we can do this, or we can do this, or we have a committee to do this. And actually, we've pretty much done all of those things several times already, and it hasn't fixed it.
what do
We
the
have
big
to
brain,
get perfect.
what do the big brains with God complexes like me, like Elon Musk, what would he have to say about this problem? I don't know. It ain't like inventing a electric car. Or
I
even
think
if you were omnipotent, could you even then, and could you were Deng Xiaoping feathers or whatever, and you could implement this with a stroke of the pen? I still don't know that there's a solution.
I think it is not a solution, but what I am going to do is I am just going to keep my eyes open and go ahead. It's like
You're going to drive
Carol's,
across the
it's like
Verrazano Bridge, and
it's a Carrington event that when this thing collapses, assuming it does collapse, I mean, there's no requirement that it collapse. And there's no reason it can't go on forever.
can also be a death
But,
1,000 cuts.
and it's exceedingly gloomy. I wish it wasn't, but I'm sure there's going to be millions of gallons of snake oil sold in an attempt to fix it.
Well, it's not just your financial data that's at stake, it's all the information about you yourself.
Yeah.
Is Carol and David up for questions?
I
Yeah.
certainly have one, but
Okay.
Carol,
Carol?
did you?
And no, my hand is still up from the last time.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Carol?
Then what I was going to suggest is that as opposed to worrying about muddling through with computers, it might be worth looking at the Carrington event. How might we recover? Part of the problem is that we depend on, or many of us depend on, the financial system continuing to allow us to go get groceries on a weekly basis. And in the case of a Carrington event, that
You
might
want,
have to become a daily basis.
yeah,
If
but
we
your
lost
car won't run,
electricity, if we lost transportation,
and the trucks delivering to the grocery store won't run.
and most of the food that's in the warehouses now will rot before it gets distributed.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the
Mhm.
tractors will not harvest, and
Yep.
Yep.
And of course, the
So-
solution is to grow what you eat. That'll take care of that problem.
Yeah.
Well,
and
Take
and
care of
have
your
your own
take
windmill
care of
for
your horses.
and take care of your horses and your pigs and your cows and your chickens and your radishes, and that's yeah. We all
so
go back to being
probably
systems.
Yeah.
in the United States, we're looking at perhaps 25% of the population might live through the year that it would take to restructure the whole food supply. And most of the big cities would be non-functional.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps 75% of the population would die off, perhaps 90%.
Mm-hmm.
But the only, well, I shouldn't say that. I can imagine a large portion of the Mississippi River Basin working next year for individual gardening in small towns as a food system that would work until we can basically get photovoltaic electricity to run refrigerators that did not have electronic control systems. And then we put the whole system back together again with glass fiber instead of telephone lines.
You may find it hard to build glass fiber.
I don't doubt that.
and
And are they underground, or where they can be taken out by a drone and
Well,
by $10 drone?
let's not make things more difficult. $10 drones are not going to be available.
no, it
And
certainly is not going to kill off the entire human race. It
no,
will pretty much do in this civilization.
yeah, the civilization would go without electricity and transportation. Well, we're going to lose a lot of people who depend on refrigeration for medicine.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen real quick.
And the millions of unborn children that are sitting in liquid nitrogen.
Yeah, And you can pretty well figure that Hank isn't going to get resurrected after such an event. We'll be worried about keeping ourselves and our kids alive. And if you depend on medicine, that's gone. But there's a lot of canned food that would be available for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Lucifer's hammer is another science fiction treatment of it.
Yeah, what did they have? A meteor or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other way that we might, the other civilizing, but and only since in the 90s have they been doing a decent job of they think tracking all of the potential asteroids. And they did have that thing where they went out and successfully bumped into one to move it if need be. But yeah, I mean,
tracking then gives you a couple days warning and doesn't change the consequences.
Yeah,
I'm trying to push it out of the way. You might break it and
yep.
have 3 hits instead of 1.
But if you're 100% certain that it will destroy the Earth, then what do you got to lose?
No.
Jack McDivitt did a great book called Moonfall, in which the giant meteor impacts the back of the moon.
Yep.
And essentially breaks it
Ooh.
up into lots of pieces,
Yep.
which fall.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why don't we get rid of the moon then? Let's move that out, and then we won't have any oysters and we won't have any ties.
Oh, there are always problems.
I've been watching a thing on NBC. Surprisingly, it's just about natural disasters like the and there have been many of them. There was a time when we talk about sea level rise and sea temperature rise, when the average temperature of the oceans in the world was 100 degrees. And yet life went on amazingly, but not in the same form, but it went on. (100-degree), and that had to do with undersea volcanoes that lifted the floor, flooded the earth, and also released greenhouse gases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it took a few years, decades, hundreds of years, but it was inexorable or inevitable, whatever the proper word is. But this is all on a geologic time scale. This money collapse thing is not in geological time.
Well, money isn't required. We know it's just more efficient. It's easier to deal with than barter.
I mean, it's a form of barter in a way. We both agreed that instead of quid pro quo or whatever, that we'll use this fake stuff as a token.
A convenience.
Yeah. But are you going to go up to your grocery store and say, I'll mow your lawn if you'll give me some groceries? And you could, I guess, but a lot of other people would be mowing the lawn.
People will be coming and snipping off your lawn and boiling it for stew.
Yeah.
Those dandelions would actually be good for something.
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks, and it's probably worth talking about, but maybe not much longer today.